In this video, I'm going to explain why it's illogical for people to be agnostics and not atheists. Now, most agnostics will argue that it's more logical to be an agnostic than it is to be an atheist, but I'm going to show why that isn't true. Many agnostics argue their position is more logical by asking something like, you cannot prove God doesn't exist, can you? But over the years, I've come to realize how ridiculous this position really is. In essence, most agnostics say they're agnostic because it cannot be proven one way or the other whether or not God exists. But the problem with this position is that in order to believe it, you must give equal credence to all positions in between all the extremes. In essence, if the simplest form of life on earth is on one end of the extreme, and an all-knowing, all-powerful God is on the other end of the extreme, then everything in the middle is possible, right? So if you're agnostic concerning God, then to be logically consistent, you must also be agnostic towards all positions concerning such things as angels, demons, witches, warlocks, poltergeists, unicorns, leprechauns, etc. If you believe that it is possible that an all-powerful, all-knowing, unlimited being exists, then you must also believe that it is possible that beings exist that have greater powers than humans, but less powers than God. The logic is irrefutable. And of course, this is where many human beliefs come in. The belief in the devil, demons, spirits, angels, aliens, ghosts, witches, warlocks, voodoo, etc. All are beliefs that fall in between the extreme of God on the one end and life on earth as we know it on the other end. So to be logically consistent, an agnostic must be agnostic toward anything where beliefs are concerned. If it is possible that God exists and involves himself in human affairs, then it is also possible that other powerful beings exist and involve themselves in human affairs as well. But are most agnostics agnostic toward other human beliefs? Not the ones I've met. It's my experience that most agnostics are extremely rational and logical concerning irrational and illogical human beliefs. Most are extremely skeptical towards ghosts, evil spirits, horoscopes, the devil, astrology, etc. And for good reason. If there's no proof of these things, why act as though they exist, or that they're even probable or possible? So to agnostics I say, if you believe it is possible that an all-knowing, all-powerful, ever-present being exists, then you must also believe it is possible that beings exist that are in between the unlimited entity called God and limited entities we know on earth. In essence, to be logically consistent, you must believe that anything is at least possible that comes from our imagination. Do most agnostics believe this? Of course not, because it simply wouldn't be reasonable. So why is it reasonable to believe it's possible that an unlimited being exists, but unreasonable to believe that it's possible that unproven limited beings exists? Now, you'll probably have to listen to that whole line of reasoning a few times before it really sinks in, but it's well worth the time because it's so logically sound. Here are a couple of analogies to make it more understandable. If we know that a class of animals exists called felines, and we know that at one end of the scale we have domestic cats, and at the other end of the scale we have Bengal tigers, then any size feline in the middle of those two extremes is possible. If we know that a class of animals exists called canines, and at one end of the scale we have chihuahuas, and at the other end of the scale we have Great Danes, then any size canine in the middle of those two extremes is possible. So if you're agnostic toward the belief that an all-powerful, all-knowing, unlimited, immortal being exists, then to be logically consistent, you must also be agnostic towards all beliefs that exist between the absolutely limited and the absolutely unlimited of the extremes, which means there could never be anything that is not possible. But since reason dictates that many things are simply not possible, holding this belief is not only irrational, but illogical as well. I would also like to make another point about agnostics. It's my opinion that many, if not most, agnostics simply don't want to admit that they're really atheists. In fact, many atheists don't want to admit that out loud that they're atheists. But in my not-so-humble opinion, this is a huge mistake. I've asked some agnostics about this, and they have basically said the same thing. What if there really is a God or a heaven and hell? Do I really want to take that chance? But this position is truly ridiculous if you think about it for a minute. If there really is a God, wouldn't he already know exactly what you think? You're certainly not going to pull the wool over his eyes, right? After all, he's God. So why remain silent about what you really think or believe? The only people you're hurting are people who think and believe as you do. And why would you want to do that? You already belong to one of the most hated, vilified, distrusted groups in America. So why not show some support for those you really agree with? As a matter of fact, a fairly recent survey out of the University of Minnesota, published in the April 2006 issue of American Sociological Review, found that atheists are not only the most distrusted minority in America, they're also the group that most parents would least want their children to marry. My point being that atheists and agnostics really need to stand up and say what they truly think, or others are going to continue to view them in a negative manner, even without knowing who they really are. This happens to me all the time. I worked with a man for 2 years before he said to me, "You're not an atheist. You don't do drugs, you don't steal, you don't lie, you don't party all the time," and a whole bunch of other things like that. He, like most people, equated being an atheist with being immoral or being a hedonist. And he did this because most non-believers usually keep their mouths shut about what they truly think. So nobody seems to know that non-believers can be good, honest, moral, decent human beings just like everyone else. So please speak up about what you truly think, or will continually and continue to be viewed as in a negative manner. And agnostics, please think about the logical inconsistency of your position. If you're not agnostic concerning most other human beliefs, why are you agnostic concerning the biggest, most illogical, most irrational, most implausible whopper of them all? If you're interested, all these arguments and many more can be found in my new book, The Common Sense Ethics of a Blue-Collar Philosopher, by S.G. Applebee, available at Publish America and other online bookstores. Thanks for your time.